Well, what a privilege it is to be speaking with you this morning at the Alternative Carols service. If you don't know me, my name is Pippa, and I'm the student worker here at the Minster, which means I get the best job, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if you have ever heard of the Time 100 list of the world's most influential people. I'm getting some nods. It's a bit of a mouthful. But every year, Time magazine releases a list of the 100 most influential people of that year. So in September, they released the 2021 list, and it featured people like Joe Biden, Simone Biles, Elon Musk, Billie Eilish, and to be honest, a lot of people I'd actually never heard of. But anyway, I then started thinking to myself, I wonder who is considered the most influential person of all time. So I had a Google, and amongst people like Isaac Newton, Martin Luther King, Leonardo da Vinci, the overwhelming answer to that question was, of course, Jesus Christ. Now, I've been a Christian my whole life, but even I found myself wondering, why is Jesus, this baby born to a virgin girl, 2,000 years ago in complete poverty, who never went to uni or wrote a book or traveled the world or founded a company or earned a fortune, and in fact, who was considered so intolerable that he was killed through crucifixion that was only reserved for the worst kind of criminals? Why is this man, Jesus, not just the most influential person for Christians, but the most influential person of all time? So I believe our passage today from John's Gospel offers a brilliant answer to this question. So we're going to read from John 1, verse 1, and it will come up on the screen behind me. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. So as I've been reflecting on these verses over the past few weeks, I've learned so much about who Jesus is, and I'm not going to lie, it has slightly blown my mind. So the opening verse of John's Gospel says the word 3 times. Now, the ancient Greek for word was logos, and I'm going to be using logos in this talk instead of word because it has a much deeper meaning. So the Greek word logos is really interesting because it means word, as I've just said, but it also means order and reason and meaning. So the Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Plato referred to the logos as basically the meaning and reason behind the universe and why it was created. It was like the thing that puts sense into the world, making it orderly and purposeful and structured instead of just random and chaotic. It was like an attempt to give a rational and logical explanation to the universe. So I imagine if you were to say, hey, Plato, what is the meaning of life? Or why was the universe created? He would probably suggest this abstract idea of the logos, and they didn't know exactly what that meant. And logos is the word that John uses in his opening statement of his gospel. He says, in the beginning was the logos, and the logos was with God, and the logos was God. Except obviously the whole thing was in Greek, not just that one word. But through this, John is making a really radical and really controversial statement. He's saying, look, for centuries, you have been thinking about and talking about and grappling with this idea of the logos and what the reason is behind the world. But now I'm going to tell you. Now I'm going to answer that question. So what does he do? Well, he turns the concept of the logos completely on its head because he says it isn't a philosophy, it's not an idea, it's a person, and that person is Jesus. The logos is Jesus. So the first thing that John wants his reader to understand is that all meaning and all reason in the universe is found in a person, and that person is Jesus. So we celebrate Christmas because the logos, or the word, became flesh. Like the meaning of this world became a living and breathing person in Jesus Christ. He's not just an illustration of a baby in a manger that we get on the front of a Christmas card. He is also the central point around which the universe has its meaning. So this is brilliant, isn't it? And it's an exciting idea. But how do we know if it's actually true? Like, how do we know that this isn't just John's, slightly delusional attempt at explaining the world? Well, as I said earlier, I've grown up as a Christian, and in fact, my dad is a vicar, so I was also the vicar's kid growing up, which had some ups and downs, but thankfully it was a pretty positive experience. But as I've gotten older, I've found more and more enjoyment and more of a thrill in deliberately challenging my dad with really hard theological questions, just to see if I can catch him out. I do have to say my dad does have a PhD in theology, so you can probably guess who wins those discussions, and it's not me. But I was talking to him about this talk, and I said, how can I know that what John says is actually true? Like, how do we know that Jesus really is the Word made flesh? And he said to me, think about the Eiffel Tower. How do you know that it's true? How do you know that it's real and it exists? Well, you could look at photos of the Eiffel Tower, or you could look at videos of it on YouTube. You could Google it. You could even ask somebody who's been to Paris, is the Eiffel Tower really there? Does it actually exist? Or the most convincing thing you could do is book a plane ticket and go to France and have a look for yourself. And that is exactly what God does in becoming flesh. He becomes a real, tangible person who people could see and know and feel, just like we can see and know and feel the Eiffel Tower. People have been waiting in the New Testament for hundreds of years, for generations, for this abstract philosophical idea who up until now was kind of like this imaginary concept. But finally, for the first time, people could actually see him and actually know him. And this is how it would have been for John. So most theologians agree that John was probably one of Jesus' disciples. So it's likely that they ate together, they prayed together, they did ministry together. They would have probably had a very close relationship. And I love to imagine John looking at Jesus and thinking, you actually existed before the world began. Or maybe he looked at him and thought, you created me. Or maybe he thought, not only did you exist before the world began, but you actually gave the world meaning. The world only has meaning because of you. I just think he would have been dumbfounded at this realization that Jesus, the creator, had time for an ordinary person like John. And so, if this really is true, what does that mean for us? Well, even though we cannot physically see Jesus like John could, Jesus still came to have a relationship with every single one of us. He was born in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago because the ultimate longing of Jesus' heart was to have a relationship with his children. That's you and me, the finite, minuscule specks of dust that we are amongst the billions of years in which the universe has existed. But you know what? That tiny little blip that we are is so important to Jesus that not only would he become flesh, but he would become a baby. Not a prince, not a king, not a world leader, but a baby, born in a stable, not even indoors. And that after 33 years of living on this earth, he would be crucified in our place. There is no other reason to go through that than love. And that is why Jesus is undoubtedly the most influential person who ever walked this earth, because he created it, he gave it meaning, he loved it, and he died for it. So as we come into Lands, what can we do this Christmas in response to this message? Well, I was reading the other day that many people throughout COVID said that they'd experienced a lack of purpose in their life. So as we know, lots of people were furloughed, some even lost their jobs, and just generally we realized that the meaning and purpose that we give ourselves can so easily be taken away from us by things outside our control. Purpose and meaning are things that we really seek and we really value in life. But this Christmas, I want to encourage you that the meaning and purpose in your life is thankfully, not found in yourself, but found in Jesus. Yeah, it's found in Jesus, the most influential person of all time. And I want to encourage you today that Jesus, who was with God in the beginning, became flesh this Christmas, that we celebrate his life and his death, because the ultimate longing of Jesus' heart was to have a relationship with all of us in this room today. So I would love to invite you to stand, and I'm going to pray for you as we close. So Jesus, in this busy Christmas time, would you help us to come into your presence? Maybe we're still, wondering if you're really there, or maybe we've had a relationship with you in the past and we feel like we've drifted away. Or perhaps we're here and we really lack that sense of meaning and purpose in life. Jesus, I thank you that we can have a perfect relationship with you, that you are the light of the world. In you there is no darkness at all. So Jesus, would you come now and fill our hearts and fill our minds with peace and joy this Christmas, that we would know we are completely safe and completely cared for in your hands. Yeah, we worship and praise you today. In your name, amen.